Dartmoor is this beautiful but wild and barren landscape in Devon. And Florence Warwick, who was 28 years old, was driving along one of the empty roads on the moor that led from the Post Bridge to the two bridges one evening. Then, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, her car started to judder and kick back and forth, and then suddenly came to a halt. And just at that time, she managed to barely pull over to the side of the road, and with concern on her face, she pulled out her car handbook and tried to determine what was going wrong with her car. What happened next would make her determined never to venture onto the moors at night again. She said, "As I sat in the fading light, I suddenly felt very cold, and it felt strangely like I was being watched. And I looked up and suddenly saw these huge, hairy hands outside the window of my car pressing against it. And at this point, I couldn't move, I couldn't scream. They were just so close to me, it was so horrible." Now, during this time, she watched in terror as these huge, disembodied hands crawled across the glass in front of her and toward her. And after what seems like a lifetime, she screamed, and then the hands seemed to vanish. Now, I know how this story must sound, but there are other aspects to go along with it and to somewhat verify that something creepy is definitely going on there. But she was so badly shaken up by this that she didn't even realize at the time that she managed to start her car again. So she put her car in drive and immediately drove off. And as she did, she gradually started to think that she must have imagined the whole thing. And of course, she before had never heard of these ghostly, giant, hairy hands that have appeared to many others before her on the moor. She had not been the first to become victim to such a frightening encounter. And it seems the curse of the road started all the way back in 1921, when a soldier reported that a giant pair of hairy hands with long dark hair covering them literally took over his steering wheel, and that the hands themselves were laying on top of his own hands. Also, around the same time, there was a cyclist that felt his handlebars being ripped from his bicycle by huge hair-covered hands that appeared out of nowhere, and it caused him to smash right into a wall right alongside the road. Now remember, I said these stories are kind of silly, and they kind of are. You know, a haunted forest with ritualistic killings. I put that out there in case it actually is true, and if any of you watching are from there, let me know in the comments if you've heard of this before. And also, I put this one in about these hairy hands because it seems like something so weird, so strange, so out there. Like, is it paranormal? Is it a spirit? What could it possibly be? And with one story or anecdote alone, it would just be pushed to the side. But by many people reporting the same thing in that area, it just seems something to be noted, I guess. But to even add another anecdote, on another occasion, a doctor traveling by motorbike on the same road had his engine detached from his motorbike, nearly killing him as he crashed. And it was well known along that barren countryside that the horses would frequently bolt, throwing their owners to the ground and alongside the road. Then, in 1924, a young couple were visiting the moors on holiday in their camping van, and as they reached this road, there was a heavy fog that began to cover it all the way from their car to the ground, and they decided to pull over and stop for the night rather than risk driving in poor visibility. So they parked in what's called a lay-by and made themselves some dinner, and after that they settled down for the night in their sleeping bags. And the female had only been asleep for a short while when she was woken by a strange scratching noise that seemed to be coming from outside the camper. Now, she thought at the time that it could be probably a lost dog wandering in the cold, so she went toward the camper door to take a look. And then suddenly a strange chill came all over her body, and she found herself instinctively turning to the nearest window, and there was slowly crawling across the glass a giant pair of hairy hands covered with long, thick, shaggy, dark hair. Now, at this point, she was in absolute terror and frozen to the spot, unable to move. She made the sign of the cross and prayed out loud for help, but to her tremendous relief, she watched as the hands slid off the windscreen and vanished. She then spent the rest of the night unable to sleep, staring at the windscreen just in case that it happened again. So the local council, after a numerous number of incidents, decided it was time to improve the road, believing quite naturally that if they improved the road, it would stop these accidents from occurring. However, after the road improvements were made, strange things continued to occur. And then a few years later, a man was driving through the moors when something happened, and he was found the next day dead, lying underneath his car. And as his death was investigated, of course, there seemed to be absolutely no cause for his death. And when investigators examined his car, they could find absolutely nothing wrong with it. And locals, of course, whispered to each other about the probable cause of this unexplained, untimely demise. So is there a haunted forest where ritualistic killings are done, and then they take you away somewhere and do whatever they do to you, and then bring you back and just drop you on a path to be found? And is there really in the moors a road where you drive on, and whether you're a cyclist in a car or in a camping van, these hairy hands can just obstruct your view or literally grab your own hands and just come out of nowhere? Whether any of this is true, I will never know, and you will probably never know unless it happens to you. All we have are these anecdotes that we're given. So thank you for listening to this story. I will be uploading stories 2 to 3 times every week. So please, if you enjoyed this, take a moment to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up, and share this video to everybody that you know. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.